experiencing similar things, but a very, very interesting conversation beyond boundaries. My journey as a I can't even say it, sorry, Abby, neurodivergent entrepreneur, shaping well-being. What a wonderful conversation. So thank you so much, Abby, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm honored and I'm excited because we're going to get to know about you and how you got to where you are now. And may I just say just a little bit just to introduce you for everyone who is listening. So you're a freelance trainer, a coach, and consultant specializing in well-being. Definitely. You bring a unique blend of professional expertise and personal passion to supporting neurodivergent individuals and the environments in which they thrive. And there's so much more, so much more. So, Abby, I have all these questions to ask you, but I'd really like to start, if that's okay. Tell us about you. Tell us about your journey, your passion to where you got to now, where you are now, and what sparked your journey into being an entrepreneur in the wellbeing sector.
Oh, thank you for that lovely introduction. And so, yeah, quite rightly, as you said, so I'm a freelance wellbeing specialist, and though I cover a variety of different wellbeing topics, from anxiety to sleep to productivity, a very kind of special area of mine is neurodivergence, and that includes autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, a whole race, well, a whole range of different neurotypes. And I'm also autistic. I was
Uh-huh,
diagnosed as an adult,
uh-huh.
and actually found about my own diagnosis, like a lot of parents following the diagnosis of my children. Started looking at a few signs there and thought, oh, some of this seems quite familiar. Um, but the reason why I started Wellbeing Whiz is because prior to doing this, I worked in a homeless centre as a support worker and then as a project lead for women who were, potentially at risk of becoming homeless or in vulnerable situations. And, whilst I was doing that, I was delivering some training to my colleagues as well, which I
Yes.
really, really enjoyed that aspect. And that was around the time that I was doing my master's. So once I'd completed that, I kind of took a little bit of a switch, really. I went into the corporate world for a year where I was a wellbeing specialist supporting small business owners. So that was through one-to-one sessions as well as delivering, workshops and webinars. And I really, really enjoyed that as well. And I noticed that a lot of the people that I was supporting either had a diagnosis of autism or ADHD,
Mm.
or might have been awaiting a diagnosis, or noticed that they had, traits and, maybe weren't necessarily considering pursuing a diagnosis, but certainly need a little bit of, more specialist help to help with day-to-day task management, work-life balance, that sort of thing. So when my contract there ended, with the encouragement of my very supportive husband and friends, I thought, you know what, I really enjoy doing this. It's something I feel passionate about helping people, you know, increase and maintain their well-being regardless of what their neurotype is. So
Yes.
I started Wellbeing Whiz, and I can't believe it's only been a year.
It goes quick.
It does, but
It
no,
goes.
it's wonderful. I absolutely love it because day to day, I'm seeing individuals to support them with various aspects of their well-being.
Mhm.
I'm delivering in-house training to different groups, companies, organizations, and that, both in-house and online, as well as, providing a bit of advice or guidance, as you were saying in the introduction, about helping places understand neurodivergence and neurodiversity and how we can make environments more inclusive for everybody, really. So yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of a real whirlwind about how I've got to where I am now.
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd just like to take a moment just to really honor you, because in what you're doing, and especially helping others in their well-being, which, not everyone does look after their own well-being, because we live in a crazy world, right? That and it's all
Absolutely.
about, I think we now have a pandemic of human doingness instead of beingness. And well-being isn't high on everyone's list, especially for people who have challenges, other challenges, that whether they've been diagnosed or not. But they're finding it even more challenging to live in this world. So just like I said, I'd just like to just to take a moment to really honor you and thank you for bringing your passion not only into Sacred You, but into the world, right? Because it's
Oh,
so
thank you.
needed. And tell us a little bit more, like, how do you navigate, or how do you go through your challenges of and balancing the neurodiversity, right? And being an entrepreneur in your whole life. How does that work for you?
That's a really, really great question. I suppose looking back a little bit, and I don't know if there's anything that anybody out there as well can relate to, is that I've always, growing up, felt like a little bit of an outsider, a bit different, because there were things that other people just seemed to get,
Yes.
like, things like social etiquette, fashion, just generally how to get through life, seemingly to my eyes, as it, as a breeze. Whereas for me, I thought, why do people find this so easy? I mean, take driving a car, for example. Some people, when they learn to drive a car, they pick it up very quickly and, can just do it without thinking about it. Whereas I found that even now, although I am a safe driver, I will just, put that out there. I'm still sort of having to think about, what I'm doing, the gears, where I'm looking, what other road users are doing. And I feel like that analogy reflects, certainly in my experience as, an autistic person throughout life, because you're constantly sort of having to balance and think, right, what's the situation here? What's in my environment? What do I need to focus on? What are other people saying? And what do they mean by what they're saying? And it can be quite exhausting, which is why it's really, really important to make sure that I look after my own well-being as well. And although, yes, there are some challenges, certainly in that aspect, I've also find that there are a lot of strengths that I have that who knows if I'd have them if, I could kind of had a typical brain makeup. For example, if I'm passionate about something or if I care about something, I'm very, very committed to it. I'm very, very dedicated to it. And I want to make sure that I do a job as well as I can and pay as much attention to detail as possible, and noticing things like pattern recognition as well. And I think as well, having the experience of being neurodivergent and having that experience as well of feeling like you're a bit different, or like the rest of the world or society isn't necessarily built for you yet.
Mm.
It can really help to develop that kind of understanding and empathy for other people, regardless of what it is that they might be going through, but who kind of experience those barriers or difficulties. You have that sense of understanding
Yes.
and kinship. And
Yes.
understanding these things as well can actually help to realize, why isn't this relaxation technique working for me? It seems to work for everybody else. But
Mm.
if your brain is wired a little bit differently, then it might be that that doesn't work for you, and that's okay. So it's a case of finding something else that does. And translating that sort of into the business world, it still feels quite strange, calling myself an entrepreneur as well, because I'm just Abby. I just, talk with people about things that I'm really interested in. And but I've
Yes.
noticed again with that, I'm very confident and very happy, talking to you about this now, about presenting, about working with people. But then when it comes to things like networking or finances or, the kind of hardwire stuff behind the scenes, that's where I recognise I need a bit of support with that because it doesn't come naturally to me. And so my husband's brilliant at that sort of thing. So he supports me there.
He
So it's
does
being
that.
aware of what your strengths are and then having somebody to support you in the areas where you're not as strong so that you can keep doing the bits that you're good at and that you're confident at.
Yeah, yeah, which is wonderful. And again, I hear you. It's like you're speaking my language, and I just like to again just give a shout out to your husband, to who is supporting you, because that it's a very special person that can do that. So congratulations on that, and thank you for sharing that, because just being an entrepreneur is challenging in itself in this world. And going through, breaking through, or overcoming your challenges, the things that you're not too comfortable with but yet you still do, is
Yeah.
really good. So thank you. It's an inspiration. And can I ask you, Abby, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur? Right, whether now and they want to start their own business now, whether they have any other challenges, whether they are in the neurodivergent range or not, but what advice would you give to someone who is wanting to be an entrepreneur?
Mine would be make sure that it's something that, first of all, you feel passionate about, because I'd say I've only been going for a year and it can be very difficult
Mm-hmm.
to set up a new business because, initially nobody might know who you are or what you do. So a lot of it, well, actually all of it really is on you to kind of put that work in and to get out there what it is that you do, and make those connections. And also as well, it seems quite obvious, but make sure that you can support yourself as well and meet your needs in terms of, housing, food, all of that as well. Because realistically, as much as it'd be lovely to be like, right, I'm going to start a business tomorrow and immediately be like, right, I can live off this forever. This is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, that's not always the case. So
Mm-hmm.
it might be a case of, having either a full or part-time job at the same time so that you've got that income, and taking the time as well to actually work on your business so that you're still supported, but in a manageable way as well. It's what a lot of people seem to do. And to believe in it. I think that's one of the most important things, sorry, to actually believe in it, be passionate about it, and don't be afraid to network, ask questions, seek support, because we don't know it all. And truth is, we're probably never going to know it all either, but there are people that do have a lot more experience. And if we kind of tap into that and utilize their experience, that can be really, really useful as well.
Yeah.
But above all, I think about your why, about what your passion is. So for mine, it's because I'm passionate about well-being, and also about supporting, fellow. I like to use the word neurospicy and describe the different neurotypes that
I
people
like
that you
that.
can relate to in that sense.
I like that. Neurospicy.
Neurospicy.
I love that. We'll have to use that one. That would be a wonderful topic for another conversation.
Yes.
Neurospicy. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's true, just, and I totally agree. If I can just tell, say that again, is follow your passion. I'm so glad that you
Yeah.
said that, because it is really whatever we're passionate about, is what really makes a difference. Makes a difference.
Yeah.
And you can see that you're passionate about what you do.
Absolutely. And it's just thinking about that why as well, about what the reason is if you want to start a business. And also, the impact that that's going to have on your day-to-day life. For example, if you're a parent And, if you're in a position where you can start a business and you can take that time, it might give you the opportunity to then work around childcare commitments as well. So that, you're not having to use after school care or holiday care. I mean, sometimes if you get busy, you might have to, it might be inevitable depending on what you're doing, but it's about how you can make it work for you and how it can be sustainable, and also not to be disheartened if you've been at it for a year or so and maybe not getting the results that you wanted to. Evaluate it, seek advice, have a look. Is there anything that you need to change? Because constantly your model might have to evolve or change depending on the market, depending on what else it is that you're offering as well. So absolutely be up for being adaptable where you might have to. I'm no expert. I've only been doing this for a year, but this is just based on the experiences that I've had so far. And connect. I think connecting as well, because it can be quite lonely, especially if you're self-employed. So connecting with people, locally, nationally, internationally, can provide you that, a really, really useful support network of other people that get it, and that's really important.
Yeah, which is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And a support network is so essential in whatever way. And that's why, if I can just say, I love things about communities, because we're not meant to be alone, especially being entrepreneurs. Is that, you can reach out and say, I need help in, whether it's need help in the business side of things or just needing help in life. As you know, life becomes very challenging when you have a business to run. And it's just reaching out and saying, I just want to chill out and talk to someone.
Yeah.
That's quite good. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And tell us, for you, Abby, with everything that you're doing in your life and being an entrepreneur and everything else, how do you prioritize self-care and maintain that balance with all the demands that goes on in your life?
And that's a really, really important area. And so it's balancing, having a business, having children, other kind of friend, family commitments. And so I try, although I'm not always very good at time and task management unless I stay really, really on top of it, but that's something that I'm aware that I need to do. And I've got, hobbies such as I really enjoy reading, I like gardening, I like live music and listening to music in general. So it's making sure, because sometimes one little trick I find is, if you've got various appointments or meetings or commitments throughout the day in my calendar, I have a look and there might be some spaces where, I might have 1 or 2 hours free here and there, or, the whole evening.
Yes.
And sometimes I'd wonder, what do I do in this time? And, I'd find myself maybe on Canva or researching something. But I've since turned this around and tried to look at these now as times of opportunity. So if I've got this time, is there something that I can do for myself? Like, read a couple of chapters of a book, watch an episode of something, get out and have a walk around the local park. And so it's just kind of utilizing the time that I have, because time is probably, apart from ourselves, our biggest resource, and how we spend that
Yes.
time resource is really, really important.
Yes.
So it's about being mindful, which can be very difficult, especially as, like you were saying earlier, we seem to be doing a lot rather than being. It's kind
Yes.
of bringing that back, like, okay, well, how can I be in this time? How can I use this time for me, rather than just using it to wait for the next thing that's on my calendar, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It makes total sense. And again, just agree with you, like, time is our greatest resource. And I really find that the more I make time for me, the more time that there is for everything else that
Yeah.
I need. So I don't know about how you go with that, but yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I'd love to go in a little bit more, if I can, about neurodiversity, and what
Yes.
role does it play in bringing about or fostering innovation and creativity with being an entrepreneur?
Well, one thing that I'd first like to talk about is
Yes,
the actual terms themselves. Because
yes.
although we know that kind of neurodivergence and neurodiversity has been around for a little while, thought it might be helpful if we just kind of like clarify a couple of terms, because that can be a really, really good starting point. And so when we talk about somebody being neurodivergent, that's referring to an individual whose neurotype or brain type is different to what would be considered typical in terms of development. Um, so if somebody's neurodivergent, neurodivergence in itself isn't a condition, but
Mm-hmm.
it's representative of various different conditions, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned earlier, like autism, ADHD,
Yeah.
dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, Tourette's. That's just to name a few. So if somebody's neurodivergent, if you're saying neurodivergent, it means a different neurotype. So then this word, and I love neurodiversity, it's about creating an environment, whether that's a physical environment or an online environment or just in general, where everybody, regardless of what their neurotype is, whether they're considered neurodivergent or neurotypical, is able to thrive together in that environment. So it's truly inclusive. So it's being aware of what people might struggle with. And for example, if I give one of my own, so something a lot of autistic people might experience is something called sensory processing disorder. So if we're in quite a busy environment where there might be lots of people talking in different directions, there might also be, an aircon unit on or something in the background or a buzzing light bulb. We find it very difficult to process all of these sounds, and
Mm-hmm.
it can make it quite difficult to focus on conversations in that environment. So in terms of the impact it might have on somebody's work performance, it could be quite distracting.
Mm-hmm.
So a neurodiverse or neuro-inclusive environment, if we're talking about a workplace,
Mm-hmm.
might offer those, for example, who do experience sensory processing disorder, the option to wear, noise cancelling earbuds, or
Yes.
just, having a general maintenance check of everything that's in the room, it's working as it should be, not making any noise as it shouldn't, or offering people the opportunity to go to a quiet area to, re-regulate as well throughout the day. I mean, that's just one example. And the thing is as well that neurodiverse environments aren't just for neurodivergent people. The
Yes.
point is that they are for everybody. So it's about everybody
Everybody.
having reasonable accommodations that they need in order to feel and perform at their best. And as an entrepreneur myself, I don't employ anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do go to networking events, I've been to some where, they have been really, really inclusive and considered having, quieter spaces, about having agendas and schedules so that everybody present knows what to expect, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And all these things generally are helpful for everybody who's attending, and providing any information that people need to know written in advance so people can take it in at their own pace as well, rather than being told there and then on the day. But there are so many different ways that somewhere can become neurodiverse or neuro-inclusive. And I know a bit from kind of, the UK law regarding reasonable adjustments. I will be completely honest that I don't know in terms of Australian law
That's
about
okay.
what these are, but um, there are places that all employers do have to follow in order to adhere to make the environments, at the
Yes.
very least, a pleasant place for everybody to work. So absolutely encourage having a look at those. And if, yours or the company you work for, if the policies and procedures also reflect neurodiversity and supporting people regardless of what their neurotype is.
Mm. It all helps, and thank you for sharing that. And yes, in Australia, it's certainly becoming much more aware and prominent. You know, there's a lot of places now that have quiet times and quiet zones and things like that, to help people who are very sensory, susceptible, and things like that. So thank you for sharing that. Now, before we finish up, I'd like to ask you just two more questions. One is, tell us about your business, in fact, and, you know, like, what do you actually can help people with, and do you have any specials and offers that you want to mention?
Sure. So in terms of a business perspective, I suppose there's three elements to what I do. One of them is that I offer one-to-one support sessions with individuals, and they're an hour long, and it's really to kind of like discuss and see if there's any way that we can work together on any ways where we can target any specific areas of well-being. Some common ones that I work with are kind of like task management, time management, work-life balance, but I also look at things like assertive communication, self-confidence, and managing things like anxiety and uncertainty. And there are things that usually people find quite helpful, because I like to work with you as an individual to find a way that's going to be meaningful and specific to you in order for it to be effective. Then in terms of groups and organisations, something that I really enjoy doing, and again, this is in person or online, is creating bespoke training sessions. So, you know, it's really contextually relevant to your scenario, group or organisation. And again, that's about a range of topics. Obviously, we cover the neurodiversity, but also things, again, like I mentioned, I work with people on an individual basis for, or it might be focusing on or understanding further certain, you know, mental health issues as well. So again, it's an absolute variety. So it really depends on what you need. I've done substance misuse training delivery as well, or looking at homelessness, as well as things like sleep, working together, team building, a whole variety. And then the other aspect of it, kind of the consultancy, is if you are wanting to make your environment more neurodiverse friendly space, it's auditing, you know, where you're at now, where, you know, there's research-based evidence to suggest that there may be areas for improvement, and then what that would look like, and a follow-up as well. And April is Autism Acceptance Month. And I mean, ideally, we should be accepting everybody all the time, but it's, you know, it's a really, really good starting point to actually
It
help
is.
people understand autism. So for anybody that books a training session with me about any topic relating to neurodiversity, so whether that's in general, focusing on autism, or focusing on ADHD, because they're my two kind of specialist areas. I'm doing it for a 2-hour training session for a reduced price if it's booked in April. It doesn't have to be delivered in April, but it has to be booked in April, for £400, and that's a complete flat out fee for it. So they're the offers that I've got, well, the offer that I've got going on at the moment.
Which is wonderful. And for everyone who's watching, whether it's the live or the replay, do click on the links. Our beautiful VA Maymuna has been putting all your links in the comments of everywhere we are live. So do click on those links and reach out to Abby. You know, it'd be
Regarding my
wonderful.
links, I just need to apologise at the moment. My website is currently down,
That's
which
okay.
isn't amazing timing, but all of
That's
the,
okay.
you know, the other social media links, fingers
Okay,
crossed,
I
should be
find,
working.
yeah, I find, and that happens. You know, we live in an age of technology, but stuff still happens. And we've just got to go with that. So that's not a problem. All right, Abby, one last question. Thank you for sharing that. But is there any other thing? Is there any other question that I could have asked you? And how would have you answered?
Oh, that is a really, really good question. um, Gosh, another question that you could have asked me.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think I think to anybody out there, regardless of what your neurotype is, absolutely remember that think you're important, your time resource, how you spend it, and your own well-being are really, really important as well. And just remember to keep that in mind and connect with other people as well in whatever capacity. And think as well, just going back to any, potential or new entrepreneurs out there as well, I definitely say focus on connections. Don't see
Yes.
everybody that you're going to connect with as a potential customer. See people as a connection for who they are, and you'll find the experience a lot more enriching for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Totally, absolutely agree. We live in an amazing world. There's some incredible people, and if we just want them just to connect with them, magic can happen. So thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you ever so much, Abby. It has been a joy to be able to speak with you. Love to talk to you again, especially about neurospicy. Uh,
Neurospiciness.
Neurospiciness. Love to talk to you about that another time. And I said thank you for everyone for coming in. For everyone who is watching, do click on those links and reach out to Abby. Thank you, Abby. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem.